Hi there, welcome to Boxing Deep Dive. I'm Lyndon Hosking and this is Classic Fights. I'm joined as always by Grant Tassie Brown, Peter Maniatis, and of course Mike Altamura. How are we, guys?
Great to be on the show, guys.
Well,
I feel absolutely amazing, Lyndon. Feel great, mate. Feel
good,
great.
mate. Yeah, you look good. You look refreshed and just a little bit
I feel
different.
good. I feel. It was like Costa Zoo said when he beat Zab Judah. This is my destiny, and this is my destiny.
Or as was it George McFly said, "You are my density." Is that?
I think so. Back to the Future. What a classic.
All right. All right, so Tassie, it's up to you this week, mate. We've got a big one this week, and I'm looking forward to it. A battle between two undefeated fighters.
Yeah, mate. Like my era. These two guys. Ferocious Fernando Vargas versus Tito, Felix Trinidad, and two my personal favourites during their era. Great fight too. Like Vargas was a young guy, Olympian. Fast tracked it pretty much to a world title. I think he beat Yuri Boy Campus in his world title bid, and then mate to go up against Felix Trinidad, who already beaten De La Hoya and beaten so many great fighters. I think beaten Whitaker and a huge puncher. Mate, it was a very, entertaining fight. And I thought, why not go back in time and look at this one?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a big one. It took place December 2nd, 2000 at the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino. And Pete, at the time, two undefeated fighters, just a massive fight at the time. I mean, it's 21 years ago. It's hard to believe that, but at the time, a massive fight.
No, it was. And Vargas was a 96 Olympian. I remember the hype coming out of the Olympics. He was the youngest junior middleweight world champion in the history of the sport, I'm pretty sure. And Felix Trinidad back then was just a business. He's a guy that's going to go 12 hard rounds and at championship level pace. And if you slow up, he's going to kill you. He's that type of bloke. And it was just such an interesting matchup that they put Vargas in. I mean, thinking back then, did they put him in too early? We don't know. We're going to have to wait and see the fight. But that's what I was thinking back then when they did put Vargas in against Trinidad. I was thinking they put him in too deep, too early, because Trinidad was the business.
Yeah, he certainly was. And Mike, Trinidad was coming off wins over Pernell Whitaker, Oscar De La Hoya, David Reed, so he was in pretty good form. Had a 38-0 record where Vargas had only had the 20 wins, coming off wins over Winky Wright and also Ike Cortez. So not bad fight, and 5 defences of his title. But do you agree that maybe he was a little bit green going into the fight with Trinidad?
Well, look, the thing is, the names you just reeled off there would suggest otherwise. The fact that he had been able to step up. So I'll come back to one guy earlier and then get back to Trinidad going up to 154. But, Vargas was good enough to step up and defeat Yuri Boy Campus for the World Championship, who, had previously failed against Trinidad for the welterweight world title. But Vargas demolished him to capture the junior middleweight world title. Now, yeah, you can look at it and say that maybe he was fast-tracked there, but keep in mind also, this is only really Trinidad's 4th career fight at 154. So
We lose Mike there.
Stepped up, captured the title 150. Olympian, gold medalist at 71 kilos at those Olympics, David Reed. So the interesting part was also, like, Trinidad dialing back, and this is what I want to come back to this fight. So Trinidad won a WBC world title eliminator at 154 against Australia's Troy Waters in 1997. That was destined to put Trinidad on the pathway to fight Terry Norris in a blockbuster. So the key was to build him to be the mandatory to fight Terry Norris. Would have been a huge payday. Now, one man in history changed the fate of both these guys, and that's Keith Mullins. Keith Mullins fought Raul Marquez, 92 Olympian, lost a controversial 12-round decision, but busted up Raul Marquez to the extent that when he fought 3 months later against Yuri Boy Campus, the facial damage done to his fight, he got stopped on cuts by Yuri Boy. So what I want to bring back to is Yuri Boy, even though he is very experienced, glittering record, 60-plus wins, only the one loss to Trinidad, was seen as the right kind of prey for Vargas to fight for a world title at 21. Trinidad, in the meantime, with that payday, right? So then what happens? Like I said, Mullins destroys the payday with Norris. Trinidad stays put at 147 and bides his time. There had been talk for a long time that he was struggling with the weight, but Trinidad knew that all the money, Whitaker, De La Hoya, all the money was at 47. He timed it, moved up, captured the world championship against David Reed, made the first defense against Mamadou Thiam from France, which was a very soft defense. But this fight was also seen as a test to see if Trinidad was a genuine 154-pounder. Vargas had been proven at the weight, basically compared at the weight from pro debut, was seen as a very strong 154. In hindsight, they could maybe assume that he was put in 22, both coming into their primes or both at their primes. I thought the timing was perfect on the fight.
Well, a little bit of trivia here, Tassie, and the guys. A little bit of trivia. Now, you probably know this, Mike, but in 1996, I was obviously one of the participants for Australia. I was one...
You sure were.
Sorry?
You sure was, mate. You sure was.
But I was actually in Fernando Vargas's division. He was welterweight. Now, a little bit of trivia here. I was one selection away from actually fighting Fernando Vargas. I was the last pick of Group A. He was the first pick of Group B. So I was one selection away, and I would have loved to have done it. I mean, it didn't end well for me at the Olympics when I come up against Kazakhstan, but that's another story. But I would have loved to have actually had the chance to fight Fernando. And another little bit of an interesting side note to the story is we went to Fernando's gym in Vegas. You've probably all been there at some stage, and I got talking to him and actually mentioned to him that the story I just told, and the only thing he said was, well, let's just say probably turned out pretty well for you because it could have been a lot worse. So I really had no argument about it. I mean, look what the guy's gone on to, and such a nice guy. I must say, Pete, he looks a little bit different these days compared to what he did back then, didn't he? He's just a little bit of extra.
Yeah, a little bit pudgy. Yeah, a little bit pudgy. Yeah.
Well, that's Lyndon. That's awesome, and like I know that he's went there and. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think Brian Butler was with you.
He was.
Did Robbie Bomber Peden organise it, Bomber?
He did. He lined it up. Yep.
Well, yeah, because Bomber and him are dear friends. They both trained under was it Roger Bloodworth?
Yeah.
I think he lived with Fernando on their ranch, and Robbie's told me that him and Fernando go way back, and I think Andrew Gallotta, David Tua. There's a bit of a little crew, and Zab Judah are pretty all close. But no, Fernando. Yeah, mate, just a really good young fighter, and he went. He might have been pushed a bit quick, but like Mike said, I mean, wins over Winky Wright. I mean, Winky Wright, to have a win over Winky Wright, that's actually major, and because look what Winky Wright done later. Winky destroyed Mosley twice. Very unlucky not to beat Jermaine Taylor for the undisputed middleweight title, which was a draw and very close, ridiculous fight. The scores are just close as, and Winky was a bad man. So, and then Corte as well. So having wins like that at a young age, you probably say he was ready for Trinidad, but yeah, it's just a very good fight. And also, back to that though, Lyndon, what did Kazakhstan do after he beat you? What did he do after? Where did the Kazakhstan guy end up?
He lost in the semis to the eventual gold medalist. So obviously he could fight.
Was that Cuba?
Which I learned. Sorry, mate.
Was that Cuba?
Yeah, Cuba, Hernandez. Yeah, so let's just say I learnt the hard way about the standards of international boxing at the time. But
Beautiful.
So Mike, this fight was for Trinidad's WBA title and Vargas's IBF titles. Looking back at the time, and what did you think was gonna happen? Well, we obviously know the result, but what were your thoughts when it was first announced?
Like I said before, this was just a great fight. This is a true fight fans kind of battle. Veteran in Trinidad who's still young, who's still coming into, who's the young upstart, exciting, ferocious, as we know is his nickname, but that was reflective of everything he brought to the ring as a fighter. And it was the kind of fight that you expected Vargas to be pressing and setting the tempo, and Trinidad looking to land with long, strong counters. Just a beautiful fight stylistically, like just a beautiful matchup going in. And like I said, two guys in their prime, everything on the line, best two fighters in the world at 154. It doesn't get any better.
Yeah, Pete, and the styles sort of matched up, didn't they? Because while Trinidad was a real sort of fancy boxer, he did like to come forward and throw bombs, didn't he? Where Vargas, well, he just loved to go to war, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Look, thinking back at that fight, because I remember it, the build-up and everything, and just Vargas, the aura. I had Vargas looking as someone that could possibly, with his charisma, take over from someone like De La Hoya. And if I was looking after Vargas, because he's such a draw card, some guys snap the crowds and you think, I can fill a stadium with this guy. And Trinidad, if you're a promoter, you'd rather have Vargas and Trinidad if they can both fight, because Vargas has got that sort of Hispanic. It's you don't know what it is where a fighter can fill a stadium. It's not the way he fights, it's how he fights, how he expresses himself. There's a lot of great fighters out there, but the ones that get bums on seats, he was potentially one guy that could have made a truckload more money than what he did. And even when he fought Oscar, I mean, maybe that's another time for another story. But he was a guy that, he needed to beat Trinidad. They put him in tough and hard, and he did have the runs on the board. But in his early 20s, that's going in tough against someone like Felix Trinidad, who had that many championship fights under his belt, and it was that seasoned that he was like an unstoppable truck motor at the time. I remember when the fight was matched, I just thought Trinidad's going to beat him easy on crap. I didn't expect Vargas to win. I didn't think he was ready. That was my feeling, looking at it as a manager, not a promoter.
Yeah.
As a promoter, I'm thinking as a fan, great.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, let's check out some highlights of the fight, and then we'll come back and discuss afterwards.
Then you got to back it up, though. Big left hook by Trinidad.
First 20 seconds.
Yeah. Vargas is stunned down. Sensational left hook. Trinidad can't go to the well. He's not.
He's a good finisher too, wasn't he, Trinidad?
Oh. Mate, good also too. We didn't mention this guy. Just a good old-fashioned Mexican versus Puerto Rico rivalry.
Yeah.
One of the greatest rivalries in boxing.
Yeah.
Mexico and Puerto Rico.
Now he got hurt by a right hand. Deadly and quick.
You got to give him credit though, Vargas, don't you, Mike? He had some tick over. I mean, the 1 minute in, he's been decked twice, and he's long time to hang in there.
As being a 22-year-old in your prime, in excellent condition, that's what allows you to recover.
Despite being down twice, and now Vargas tries to rake Trinidad out of the way of those punches. How he does it, you don't know. Right hand lands for Trinidad. Vargas pops back with a left. Get his legs back under him.
Beat the work rate of Trinidad. It's just unparalleled, and he just doesn't stop.
By Trinidad that set up this assault.
I tell you now, there's not many fighters in boxing that is trying to knock you out the whole fight. The whole 12 round Trinidad is trying to knock you out. There's no two ways about it. Every punch has disaster. He's unbelievable.
Some of us really expected Vargas to be at angles and not, and he's been taking too many punches. Oh, good right hand. Throw your right hand before you throw your left. Wrong with Trinidad's right eye. Sees a chance and bangs away with the left. Hard right hand by Trinidad. Into the right eye of Trinidad. The first round. The young fighter seems to have gotten his feet under.
One of the key things, guys, are in their prime, which fighters don't fight in their prime now. They were in their prime. Wasn't Manny and Floyd waiting for 5 years. These guys fought at their peak. That's amazing.
Yeah.
You gotta give him 2 extra points.
Oh.
Is the mistake?
It just changed. Here comes Trinidad to try to follow up. I mean, check it. Vargas to try to follow up.
Even the TV telecasts were so much better back then, weren't they? The HBO, Showtime.
I love George Foreman and Larry. They were good together. And Lampley. They were awesome.
3-point round.
Mike, what a round for Vargas though. He's had a knockdown. He's had a point taken away as well. Massive round.
Felix
10-7.
backing
Working
straight.
his way
Takes
back into the
another
fight. And isn't it crazy? All three knockdowns in the fight so far. Left hooks.
Left hooks.
Left hooks.
Want him to do, spread that leg.
You know, Hoskins' favourite punch.
Just good body shots.
Look to the body by Vargas. Close to the belt.
A few low blows, though, too, by Trinidad, which is
Well,
pretty
played a
much
major part in
Trinidad.
the score, not that it mattered in the end. But
TNT.
geez, I think Trinidad was lucky not to get disqualified.
It was a thumb because there are no thumbs on these gloves, Jim, but it was a glove.
That's what Fernando would prefer. Well, let him say it. We can't do it. Trinidad making a comeback now in round 6 after having
Neither
been
guy
thoroughly
looks like a
dominated in 3, 4, and 5.
Bad intent all the time.
And Vargas, who was moving away early in the round, elects to trade with Trinidad and gets the better of him for the moment. Okay, Jim, amazing. 55-55.
Dead even there after 6.
Tito Trinidad definitely caught up in round 6. Now Vargas got to understand that these latter rounds belong to Trinidad. You've got to box him. Another low blow. And another point deduction against Trinidad. Little short with that. Now he lands one all in the night. He's been waiting for that. Corner. Talked him for 5 minutes. Does a macho battle, and it's been good left to the body by Vargas.
Trinidad was hurting the body, and he went after it.
He hit him again in the same spot, right above the trunk line there. Body punching. 10 seconds left in the round now. They come down the stretch of the round, and Vargas momentarily hurt because he stops and thinks for a second. The swelling. He hasn't blown his nose like he did. You want to make sure you throw uppercut. You're in the middle of the ring. A right hand from distance momentarily wobbles Vargas. Another combination. Vargas grabs and holds. Another big right hand by Trinidad. Vargas in trouble. He stands.
So these now from 9, 10, 11, 12. That's the difference when you're in your early 20s.
Yeah.
Haven't been in as many wars. It's like a racehorse. This is where the damage starts getting done. And listen, guys, this is where you start damaging your fighter. These last few rounds that Vargas copped, I guarantee that would have hurt his career. That brutal knockout. And that's the difference from a guy that's 22 years of age and had 20 fights, that he's 26 years of age and he's had 30, 35 fights. It's these last few rounds, not the first 10, 11, 12. That's when you see it's starting to fade a bit and coming, but he's showing heart. That's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah, agree.
He tend to fade a little bit in his fights after this too.
Trinidad's starting to move in. Trinidad's hit him in the nuts. He's bullied him a bit. He's got some points. But Trinidad's knowing now, I've got him where I want him.
Trinidad's like Julio Cesar Chavez. He'll hit you anywhere.
Yeah.
Doesn't really matter.
He's calculated.
Down
He's calculated. My advice to a fighter is if someone hits you in the balls, hit him straight back in the balls. Counter straight back to his balls. Don't worry about the referee. No, but you've got to do that.
Jeff Finney used to tell us.
Hit him straight back. Don't sit there looking at the ref.
Pride and absolute determination all the time.
Look at the work rate, though.
I think this definitely shortened Vargas' career.
Mate, look, this now, these last 6 minutes, is what hurts a fighter. And a 22-year-old that's only had 20 fights, it's like a racehorse that's a 3-year-old in a Melbourne Cup. He's going to break down the last 400 metres, and it's no different. That shot there, all right, he gets up and shows a lot of heart. This is where the damage happens for the best part of your career.
Those hooks.
See, I'd throw the towel in. Why would you want to carry him out?
It's not the Mexican way, though, unfortunately, Pete.
Yeah, but you want your fighter to be good his next fight. These knockouts and delayed knockouts, you can see the kid's holding. He's got no chance. Bang face first. So now you're rescuing. It's his next fight. Is he going to recover from that?
Yeah.
I don't know. You know, look, they're brutal. Look at that. They're brutal, brain-rattling knockouts for a 22-year-old.
Similar thing happened when you had De La Hoya as well, didn't it?
Yeah.
If I was managing Vargas, there's no way I would have accepted this fight at that time. Impossible. I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, well, there it is. There's the ending. It's a bit of a shame, Tassie, that he didn't actually make the final bell, though, wasn't it? Because he'd been such a great fight. He was apart from those last probably 2 rounds before it happened, it was actually a pretty close fight. It could have gone either way.
Yeah.
Yeah, to come back from 2 knockdowns in the first 20 seconds of the first round, to come back and even it up at round 6, to score another knockdown yourself and the low blows. And he was right in the fight. He was winning some rounds. But look, Trinidad, let's just talk about Trinidad. We talk about boxers ever since we started this show. Felix Trinidad, what a great fighter he was. Let's have a look at Trinidad. Waterweight, win over De La Hoya. And bet everyone at waterweight. Whittaker, I think, might have been a bit past, but he got the win. Light middleweight, David Reed, mate, great fighter, Olympian. He was in that fight as well. That was a good fight. Now he's done Vargas. He goes up and beats William Joppy at middleweight and only loses to the great Bernard Hopkins, who's just an old master. And then another 2 defeats, heavier passer against Roy Jones and Winky Wright. It's just no one looks good against Winky Wright. He goes out on 3 losses, 3-division world champion. Just a great legend of boxing is Felix Trinidad, who's the greatest Puerto Rican ever. I mean, Cotto was great, but Cotto never reached Trinidad status, I don't think. And how good was Trinidad, guys? What's your thoughts?
Yeah,
what a legend in boxing.
Pete, as Tazzy said, he only fought 6 more times after that for 3 wins and 3 losses. So it was a bit of a shame because after that, what was he going to? He would have been 39-0 after this fight with 32 knockouts, and that was sort of the last we saw of him because, as Tazzy said, he lost to Hopkins, Wright, and Jones Jr. after that. Yeah. Look,
it was great that they got the fight on for the fans, and I'm sure it's going to go down and be spoken about for many years to come. But career-wise, I just wonder what it did to Fernando Vargas when a young fighter, because when fighters are in early 20s, that first loss hurts them the most psychologically. Yeah. And to cop that, and the way he copped it, it would have been a hard one for him. And he copped it again with De La Hoya. I mean, if he didn't have that fight with Trinidad and he fought De La Hoya coming off some, more pumped up, he might have been a massive chance of beating De La Hoya, in my opinion. But I think that Trinidad fight came back to haunt him against De La Hoya. But De La Hoya sort of did seem to have his number as well. I don't know if he was the same type of fighter, Vargas, after he copped that loss. Because at 20-0, he looked like he was going to be a superstar. Before that fight.
No, he did, Mike, and I mean, it was hard to believe he was only 22 years of age there, which means he was only, 18 at the Olympics. So it's just an amazing sort of feat. So do you agree with that he was, I think you touched on it before anyway, about throwing in too early, but in hindsight, do you think that was the case?
Look, it's easy in hindsight to look and say it was the case, but you also got to look at the landscape at the time, which around that time, so what was it, June of 2000, De La Hoya lost to Mosley in their first fight. So De La Hoya was always going to be matched and placed on the A side or whatever he was doing. There wasn't an interest on his side of the fence at that time of going up and fighting at 154. So really, if you're looking at the landscape, what was there at 154 for Vargas outside of fighting Trinidad? To keep defending against the likes of Ross Thompson, Howard Clark, go up to 160 and fight Joppy or one of those guys? I mean, he could have maybe picked the spot like that, but it's prize fighting. You got to place sooner or later. When you build guys to world championship level, you got to place them in the biggest fights out there. And Trinidad, by far at that point in time, was the biggest fight out there for Vargas.
And Tazzy, it was just said he was only 22 years old. He only had 10 more fights in his career, which he went 6-4. So he won the WBA Super Welterweight title a couple of fights later against Jose Flores, lost to De La Hoya in the unification fight, lost twice to Mosley, and then Ricardo Mayorga ended his career. So it's hard to believe it. 22 years of age, after what looked like it was going to be just a massive career for him, and ended up only having 10 more fights.
Yeah, look, and you look at those Mosley fights to Mayorga, look how his body changed. He started carrying a bit of fat.
Yep.
He never got into that real great shape again. So obviously his lifestyle probably changed. I mean, Trinidad and the De La Hoya fight, even though he might have had some substance in the De La Hoya fight, but he looked amazing. He probably obviously cut a few corners towards the end and lived probably a bit of a rock star lifestyle, I'd imagine. And it was, I guess that's a lot of things to do. He never looked the same with Mosley and Mayorga. And look, yeah, to start so young, to have all that fame and glory and money at that age, and then the sort of, it's a bit of a cliche, isn't it? You go in fast and you come out even quicker, mate. It wasn't a real long career like a Hopkins or a Roy Jones or a Whittaker or someone like that, or a Chavez. So he got in, he made money. I reckon, like Peter said, he probably could have made more money because he was actually a superstar with the good-looking Latino Mexican fan base that could fight. I mean, he's a promoter's dream. But I mean, yeah, I guess it is what it is, and I think this loss did take a toll on him. And then De La Hoya was a great fight, and he was obviously in the fight, and they had bad blood, but he obviously fell a bit short. But yeah, I got big props for Fernando Vargas. I really enjoyed his career, and yeah, what a champion.
Yeah, Pete, you obviously been to a few of the fights overseas. I'm not sure whether you've seen Vargas at the fights, but he's treated by the fans like Oscar De La Hoya is. He's absolutely mobbed over there, isn't he? I don't know if you've seen him there.
Yeah.
He's an absolute superstar.
Yeah, but he's a popular bloke as well. He's a good bloke. He's just a good type of bloke.
I've heard that. Yeah.
Just getting back to his management, you're 22 years of age, you say to him, listen, I don't know what he got paid for Trinidad. Say he got paid $2 million. I'd rather say, look, I'd rather have 4 soft fights at $500K each. You're not going to get your $2 million. And in those 4 fights, we're going to add another 2 more years. So it'll be 24, 25. And then we'll pop and get you these guys. And guess what? You won't get $2 million by then. With all the promotional work, you'll get $4 million. So you're not going to miss out on the money, but we're going to do it when you're a bit more of a man between 25 and 20, 25, 26, 27. And that'll prolong your career a bit more as well.
Yeah.
That's what I would have done rather than throw him in deep. And, it's no different to racehorse owners. They get excited. They get a 3-year-old. Bang, we're going straight for the cup. It runs 7th, breaks down. It's ever the same horse. Just settle down. Take it through its grades. Think about a 10-year career. Not right now he's 22, he's flying. Because you've got to think what happens if he gets beat. How much is that going to push him back? So as you said, he went 6 and 4.
He's calling for it. What do you do if he's calling for it, though? Asking
he's only 22, though. He's only a kid. How many kids really know about life at 22? Let's be honest. I'm 20. We're all been 22. We're all punks at 22. We thought we knew everything. We were bulletproof. That's where you need someone that's seasoned. Whatever. You were the king of Tasmania. That's where you sit them down and you tell them how it is. And if they really trust you and you're part of the team, you work out a plan that you're going to make more money at the end of it anyway. And that's what Mayweather did. That's what, Manny sort of maybe didn't, but Mayweather did. And a lot of the fighters prolonged their careers and made all the money at the end and minimise the risks.
Mike, just to finish off, what an era there was back then, though. Like, obviously, Trinidad, De La Hoya, Vargas, Mosley, Joppy, Hopkins, Wright. I mean, the list just went on and on and on, didn't it? What an unbelievable era of boxing that was.
Well, we talked about it at the start of the program. I mean, you look at the 2 guys that Trinidad had beaten coming in, which was De La Hoya and, of course, Whittaker. That's 2 of the dominant fighters of the era. Then you've got Vargas beat Winky Wright, who went on to be the dominant junior middle.
Yep. And Ike Corte.
The other darling welterweight. That previous. It was just it really was a golden era, and I think that in hindsight, what probably wasn't appreciated enough is in some kind of roundabout way, they all kind of fought each other. There wasn't just this, Instagram era that we're seeing nowadays. These guys actually were prepared to get in the ring. And I understand like what Pete's saying, but I think Vargas, being the way that he came through in the Southern California gyms, was never going to say no to a challenge. He always wanted to test himself against the best. Vargas would have fought Trinidad on debut if he was allowed. So I think that, from the business side of things, sometimes you look and you're like, all right, could have been managed differently. But I think that's why all those guys from that era in Linden are remembered fondly, because they all fought each other. They're all prepared to take risks.
Yeah, well, I've got to agree there because I'd much prefer that era there where they were actually all in there fighting. Yep, they probably won a few, lost a few, but in there fighting rather than all this Instagram bullshit of trading barbs at ringside with everyone's cameras in the face. I think it's ridiculous.
Haney and Lopez, get away
yeah,
with that.
So
No,
that's...
even if you went back to the mid-'80s, that's when the era was of boxing.
Yeah,
Leonard, Duran, Hearns, Hagler. These guys were the real deal.
Yeah, do anything to just be back in those days. Well, away from these days where it's all just a bloody show of who's got the most followers. And this is another conversation for another time. Tassie, put on the list for your Tassie's tirade because it just drives me nuts that in this day and age it's all about Instagram followers and all the rest of the crap rather than getting in there and fighting.
Like Peter knows with the TikTokers and that, the TikTokers, if you've got 1 million TikTokers, you're famous.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just crazy, you know what I mean? But look at the lightweight division now. Well, Gervonta Davis, Ryan Garcia, Lopez and bloody Haney, they all just talk shit about each other.
Yeah.
They don't fight each other like... I mean, Davis is fighting that Rolly, whatever Romero, who's a little, I think is a punk. I think Haney's full of shit. I think Lopez is probably the best out of them. Will probably tank, but I mean, and Garcia was injured again apparently, and he had a breakdown before that.
Yeah.
They're all just a bunch of fucking just piss off.
It's one of those. Seems like it's one of those eras where they'd rather look good. Rewind that. They'd rather look good and lose than look bad and win. One of those sort of situations where back in the days it was just, hey, let's just get it on. You win some, you lose some. These days, oh my God, I can't possibly lose a fight or else I'm going to lose half my Instagram followers. So
the heavyweights are showing the form though.
Yeah, they are.
They're leading the way.
They are.
I'll tell you what, no one's screaming Lomachenko's name. He's still the king.
Well, let's hope he
still
comes
beats
back.
them all.
Because on his day, he beats
them
them all. Yep, I agree.
He beats them all, mate.
Yep.
He beats them all.
I
They're all a
agree.
bunch of little punks. Typical, they're just, shit talkers.
All right, well, we better end it there or else Tassie's going to get his tirade going. So, thanks again, guys.
Serenity now.
Mike, I think we're up to you next week. Who have you got?
Yeah, going back to another Australian classic. Jeff Harding versus Dennis Andrews 1.
Oh, great fight.
Wow.
I thought you were going to steal my thunder for a second there because I've got an Aussie fight lined up in the next few weeks, but that will be an absolute ripper.
Yeah, one of my favourite fights of all time.
I thought you was going to have Johnny Binge versus Ariel Bartelio.
Looks like he's gone. You're off the hook. All right, let's finish it there, guys. Thanks again. We'll see you next week.
Good one, guys.